This is the Demystifying Mental Toughness Podcast, hosted by David Charlton, and you're listening to this podcast to help you build your own mental toughness, or so that you can support other people or your clients better. Either way, you will learn more about developing this plastic personality trait that all but guarantees that you will perform better and lead a more prosperous life. Hi there, welcome to the Demystifying Mental Toughness Podcast with your host, David Charlton. Today I'm going to pick out a case study, the case study of an athlete who thinks that they have to think in a certain way to perform well, that they have to think and feel confident before they perform in order to perform at their best and succeed. So I'm going to use the analogy here of an ice bath. So currently I go in the ice bath around about 4 to 5 days per week. I don't put pressure on myself to go in anymore. But some days, well, to pardon the pun, I am shitting myself. That's right. So if we think about the winter months, when it's very cold outside, perhaps it's snowing, and I've been working from home in a nice warm house, the heating's blasting, and then having to get outside in your swimming shorts when there's snow on the ground and it's freezing, it's not particularly pleasant. And also to know that you're going to be going in some freezing cold water definitely is not pleasant. The thought that the next 30 seconds to a minute of acclimatizing to that temperature, well, there's a lot of doubts, a lot of worries go on. And I'm drawing on past experiences, I suppose, here. And I'm beginning to predict the future and the emotions that I'm going to experience. And if we think about the athlete, that's exactly what they're doing. This need to feel confident, well, they're drawing on experiences when they have felt great, when they have felt confident. And then they're assuming that when that was the case, well, they're going to go on to perform really well the next time, because perhaps they did on some of these occasions. But how realistic is that? We all know that sport is very, very unpredictable. There's so many factors outside of our control. So how is it that we can feel confident every day in every situation? It's just not going to happen, is it? If we go back to 2023, I believe it was August, come September of 2023, the world's best tennis player, or the best tennis player that's ever lived, arguably Novak Djokovic, well, he did a press conference after winning the US Open at that time of the year. And in the press conference, he talked about how he was getting ahead of himself. He was predicting the future on occasions, how he was in the past on occasions. Then he was in the future, he was in the past. His emotions were out of sync on occasions. Now, this is the best tennis player that's ever lived talking like this. I found it refreshing to listen to. I'll put a link in the show notes that actually highlights this so you can actually retrieve it too. So if Novak thinks like that and perhaps gets a little bit overwhelmed on occasions, then it's okay. This is realistic. You're a human being. As a football player, you might have a penalty kick and you might be thinking you're going to shank it over the bar. If you're a netball player or a basketball player, you might have that winning shot and you picture it missing. This is actually normal. It is perfectly okay and acceptable. It's a myth to think that you must think positive, that you must be confident every time that you perform. Yes, it's helpful. Yes, it relaxes the muscles, it quietens the mind, it helps you get in the zone, helps you get into a flow state if you are feeling confident. I agree, there's no doubt about it. But it is just not the reality. It doesn't work like that, sport. And there are times when you're going to feel tired, when you've got off a plane or a train or a bus and you're stiff and you've got to go out there and perform. And you might well perform well. There's going to be times when you make mistakes and then you've got to perform 10 seconds later, 30 seconds later. Now, we think about our emotions. They're changing all the time. We might be angry one moment, frustrated the next, disappointed the next, confident the next, brave, relaxed. There's an awful lot going on. Apparently, we have around about 80,000 plus thoughts per day. and about 80% of them are negative. So being able to think positive and be confident every single time, I'd say, is a big no-no. It's just not going to happen. So acceptance is key. I'm guessing if you're listening to this, there are occasions where you've had a poor warm-up, yet you've still played well. You've had a stinking last performance, but again, you've played well the next time. If you're a cricketer, a batter, you've had a run of ducks, but then all of a sudden you've had a big score. So it is possible not to be feeling great and then to go out to perform. I'm guessing as well, you've had surprising situations. Perhaps you've gone out for a meal. You've looked at the plate and thought, ooh, I don't fancy that. But actually it's tasted quite nice. Or you've gone to the dentist and you're expecting an unpleasant experience, yet actually it was quite relaxed and it was absolutely fine. Or as a parent, maybe you've decided you're going to take your children out somewhere for a hike, perhaps in the woods or up a hill. In your mind, you've built it up that they're not going to be happy about it. But then to your dismay and disbelief, they've been cool about it. We have this tendency to predict the future, as I say, based on past experiences. And it doesn't have to impact performance. A good way to think about it is a thought is just a thought, and that's all it is. And maybe a feeling is just a feeling too. Try not to take your thoughts and your feelings too seriously. That would be a bit of advice from me. And a little tip, what I'd like you to do, ideally after this podcast, after listening to it, is think about 20 things that have taken you by surprise. So 20 events that where you've put up a barrier, you've been negative, yet actually it's turned out okay. So those warm-ups, those events where you've gone to the dentist, or when your children have surprised you, or when you've stood over a golf shot and thought you're going to shank it and actually you hit it down the middle, or when there's been a big crowd there and you've been really worried and you've gone about your business and actually done it well. Write down those 20 things, and it might help you see some fresh perspective there. Please do feel free to share this episode with your friends, with parents, if you're a parent, with other coaches, with other athletes. I'd love people to get this message, that you don't have to think positive all of the time, that you don't have to be confident all the time, and that you don't have to think in a certain way to be successful. Flexibility upstairs is key to do well ultimately. Try to seek to embrace those uncomfortable thoughts and those uncomfortable feelings. They are part and parcel of life and of sport. Until next week, have a fantastic day. If you enjoyed this episode of the Demystifying Mental Toughness Podcast with David Charlton, do check out my website, sport-excellence.co.uk, and my online sport psychology resources. The Sport-Excellence website has essential resources for anyone looking to build their own mental toughness or the mental toughness of their athletes or teams, or if you want to achieve peak performance more often or optimal functioning. The Sport Excellence website has everything you need to keep moving forward and thrive. So go on, head over to sport-excellence.co.uk to find out more.